Hello and welcome to this art and design class, during which I want to talk to you about Leonardo da Vinci. Now, Leonardo was born in 1452 and he lived until 1519. And he's known for being a painter, an architect, an inventor, and a student of all things scientific. His natural genius crossed so many disciplines that he epitomized the term Renaissance man. Today, he remains best known for his art, including two paintings that remain among the world's most famous and admired, the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper. Art, Da Vinci believed, was indisputably connected with science and nature. Largely self-educated, he filled dozens of secret notebooks with inventions, observations, and theories about pursuits from aeronautics to anatomy. But the rest of the world was just beginning to share knowledge in books made with movable type, and the concepts expressed in his notebooks were often difficult to interpret. As a result, though he was lauded in his time as a great artist, his contemporaries often did not fully appreciate his genius. The combination of intellect and imagination that allowed him to create, at least on paper, such inventions as the bicycle, the helicopter, and the airplane, based on a physiologically and flying capability of a bat. Now, what do we know about Leonardo da Vinci's early life? As I said, he was born in 1452, and he was born in a place called Anciano, Tuscany, which is now Italy, close to a town of Vinci that provided the surname we associate with him today. Leonardo of Vinci. In his time, he was known just as Leonardo, or as Florentine, Il Florentine, since he lived near Florence and was famed as an artist, inventor, and thinker. Now, what many people don't know is that Leonardo da Vinci's father, an attorney and a notary, and his peasant mother were never actually married to one another, and Leonardo was the only child they had together. With other partners, they had a total of 17 other children, all of which are Leonardo da Vinci's half-brothers and half-sisters. Not many people know that. Now, da Vinci's parents weren't married, and his mother Caterina, a peasant, wed another man while da Vinci was very young and began a new family. Beginning at the age of 5, Leonardo lived on an estate in Vinci that belonged to the family of his father, Ser Piero, an attorney and notary, as I said. Da Vinci's uncle, who had a particular appreciation for nature that da Vinci grew to share, also helped raise him. Now, we never think of artists having jobs, but Leonardo da Vinci did have a career. He didn't receive a formal education beyond basic reading, writing, and math, but his father appreciated his talent and appreciated him at around the age 15 and apprenticed him to the noted sculptor and painter Andrea di Verrocchio, and he was a guy from Florence. Now, for about a decade, da Vinci refined his painting and sculpting techniques and trained in mechanical arts. When he was 20, so in 1472, the Painters Guild of Florence offered da Vinci membership, but he remained with Verrocchio until he became an independent master in 1478. Around 1482, he began to paint his first commissioned work, the Adoration of the Magi, for Florence's San Donato, a Scopeto monastery. However, da Vinci never completed that piece because shortly after he relocated to Milan to work for the ruling Sforza clan, serving as an engineer, painter, architect, designer of court festivals, and, most notably, a sculptor. The family asked Da Vinci to create a magnificent 16-foot equestrian statue in bronze to honor dynasty founder Francesco Sforza. Da Vinci worked on the project on and off for 12 years, and in 1493 a clay model was ready to display. Imminent war, however, meant repurposing the bronze earmarked for the sculpture into cannons, and the clay model was destroyed in a conflict during the ruling Sforza Duke fell from power in 1499. Now, Leonardo da Vinci went on to paint the Last Supper and the Mona Lisa. Although relatively few of his paintings and sculptures survive today, in part because his total output was very small, these two extant works are among the world's most well-known and admired paintings. The first is Da Vinci's Last Supper, painted during his time in Milan, from about 1495 to 1498. We don't know the exact time that was spent to produce this picture. A tempera and oil mural on plaster, The Last Supper was created for the refectory of the city's monastery of Santa Maria delle Grazie, also known as the Cenacle. This work measures about 15 by 29 feet and is the artist's only surviving fresco. It depicts the Passover dinner during which Jesus Christ addresses the apostles and says, "One of you shall betray me." One of the painting's stellar features is each apostle's distinct emotive expression and body language, its composition in which Jesus is centered among yet isolated from the apostles has influenced generations of painters. When Milan was invaded by the French in 1499 and the Sforza family fled, Da Vinci escaped as well, possibly first to Venice and then to Florence. There he painted a series of portraits that included La Gioconda, a 21 by 31 inch work that's best known today as the Mona Lisa. Painted between 1503 and 1506, the woman depicted, especially because of her mysterious slight smile, has been the subject of speculation for centuries. In the past, she was often thought to be Mona Lisa Gherardini, a courtesan, but current scholarship indicates that she was Lisa del Giocondo, wife of Florentine merchant Francisco di Giocondo. Today, the portrait is the only Da Vinci portrait from that period that survives. Is housed at the Louvre Museum in Paris, France, where it attracts millions of viewers each year. Around 1506, Da Vinci returned to Milan along with the group of his students and disciples, including young aristocrat Francesco Melzi, who would be Leonardo's closest companion until the artist's death. Ironically, the victor over the Duke Ludovico Sforza, Gian Giacomo Trivulzio, commissioned Da Vinci to sculpt his greatest equestrian statue tomb. It too was never completed, this time because Trivulzio scaled back his plan. Da Vinci spent 7 years in Milan, followed by 3 years more in Rome, after Milan once again became inhospitable because of political strife. Now, let's think about some of his philosophies. His was one of a philosophy of interconnectedness. Da Vinci's interests ranged far beyond fine art. He studied nature, mechanics, anatomy, physics, architecture, weaponry, and more, often creating accurate workable designs for machines like the bicycle, the helicopter, a submarine, and military tank that would not come to fruition for centuries. He was, wrote Sigmund Freud, like a man who woke too early in the darkness, while the others around him were all still asleep. Several themes could be said to unite Da Vinci's eclectic interests. Most notably, he believed that sight was mankind's most important sense, and that saper vedere, knowing how to see, was crucial to living all aspects of life fully. He saw science and art as complementary rather than distinct disciplines, and he thought that ideas formulated in one realm could and should inform the other. Now, probably because of his abundance of diverse interests, Da Vinci failed to complete a significant number of his paintings and projects. He spent a great deal of time immersing himself in nature, testing scientific laws, dissecting bodies, humans and animals, and thinking and writing about his observations. At some point in the 1490s, Da Vinci began filling notebooks related to four broad themes: painting, architecture, mechanics, and human anatomy, creating thousands of pages of neatly drawn illustrations and densely penned commentary, some of which, thanks to left-handed mirror script, was indecipherable to others. The notebooks, often referred to as Da Vinci's manuscripts, are codices, and they're housed today in museum collections after having been scattered after his death. The Codex Atlanticus, for instance, includes a plan for a 65-foot mechanical bat, essentially a flying machine based on the philosophy of the bat and on the principles of aeronautics and physics. Other notebooks concerned by Da Vinci's anatomical studies of the human skeleton, muscles, brain, and digestive and reproductive organs, which brought new understanding of the human body to a wider audience. However, because they weren't published in the 1500s, Da Vinci's notebooks had little influence on scientific advancement in the Renaissance period. Now, later on, Da Vinci left Italy for good in 1516, when French ruler Francis I generously offered him the title of premier painter and engineer and architect to the king, which afforded him the opportunity to paint and draw at his leisure while living in a country manor house, the Chateau of Cloux near Amboise in France. Although accompanied by Melzi, to whom he would leave his estate, the bitter tone of drafts of some of his correspondence from this period indicate that Da Vinci's final years may not have been very happy ones. Melzi would go on to marry and have a son, whose heirs upon his death sold the Da Vinci estate. Da Vinci died in Cloux, now Clos Luce, in 1519 at the age of 67. He was buried nearby in the palace church of Saint Florentin. The French Revolution nearly obliterated the church, and its remains were completely demolished in the early 1800s, making it impossible to identify Da Vinci's exact gravesite. Okay, that's the end of my short talk about Leonardo da Vinci. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll do some more later on some of the other famous artists of that time. Thank you for listening.